Good evening, St. Clair Avenue. What a joy and a pleasure it is to be here and to be invited to speak here this evening. I've been looking forward to this moment. Thank you to the elders. Thank you to Brother Will. And it's nice to meet Betty as well today for the first time. I love this congregation. You all are so good to us. I will admit to you that right now I'm running on adrenaline and caffeine. Yesterday, I left Bowling Green about noontime Central, 1 o'clock your time. I had to drive about 100 miles out of the way for a special pickup of a donation, and then made my way up to Youngstown last night. I pulled in about 10:45 or 11 o'clock, 550 glorious miles. And I get to the hotel, and I get in, and there's another couple with a young lady with them, probably middle school aged. And the man behind the desk goes, "Oh, you must be a part of the dance team for the dance team competition." I said, "Oh no, this doesn't sound good." All I wanted was sleep. And she goes, "Yes, I am. Yes, I am." It's so, "Well, we've put you on the second floor with all your teammates for the competition tomorrow." And so I get up to the desk after that. "Mr. Hamilton, so glad to have you here." I said, "It's good to be here. You also will be on the second floor." Yeah, second floor. So about 1 o'clock this morning, there was finally a lull in the activity, and I was able to fall asleep. But you know what? It wasn't the girls making so much noise. It was the parents. Man, they were louder than the girls were. But I finally got a little sleep, and I woke up this morning, and I spoke at the Struthers congregation there, Jason Shroud and the congregation, wonderful congregation there, and made my way down to Columbiana and then down to here. And I'm so glad that I've been invited to speak. You may be wondering, who is this person speaking to us tonight? My name is David Hamilton. My wife Kim and I have been married 37 years. And I will tell you straight up that I married way out of my league. And I'm so proud of it. I was tooling around in the minor leagues when I met Kim, and she was in the majors. So I just did really well. All 37 years have been spectacular for old Dave here. Now, Kim will tell you about half of them have been pretty good. The rest of them are kind of suspect. But I've been really happy. We've got 2 grown children, Matthew and Sarah. Matthew's age 34, Sarah's 31. And because we let them live through their teenage years, they have blessed us with 3 granddaughters. And I've got lots of pictures on my phone if you're interested afterwards. Willow is age 10, Emma Kate is age 8, and Isabel is 2, going on 22. I talked to my son yesterday while traveling up here, and he said her favorite word now is no. Time to get dressed, no. Time to brush your teeth, no. Time to go to bed, no. And so it's going to be a nice challenge for them. But we are blessed with 3 wonderful grandchildren. I've been preaching the gospel more than 35 years. I preached in full-time work for 30 years. And then I wanted to step back from full-time work, and that's when I began working for Potter. Changed my ministry a little bit to young people and to young families. And I traveled 12 states for Potter, collecting donations that are so generously given to us, just like you all. And we appreciate all that you do for us. I still preach. I preach for the South Warren Church of Christ in Bowling Green's growing congregation. As a matter of fact, we're getting ready to break ground on Sunday, May 1st on our new building. We're excited about that. So it's indeed a good work. And that's a little bit about who I am, but you didn't come to hear about me. You came to hear about Potter. And I've been working there 5 years, and it's a great ministry. Before we get into actual presentation of the PowerPoint, I want you to open your Bibles, if you brought them with you, to Exodus, the 22nd chapter. As we begin this presentation, I want to talk to you a little bit about a small part of the nature of the God that we serve. Our God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. His character does not change. Our God is indeed the same throughout eternity. And I want to talk about just a small portion, one portion of that nature of God, and how He feels about the most vulnerable people of society. And if I were to ask you who you thought were the most vulnerable, those who were open to be taken advantage of by others, you would probably say widows and children. And you would be exactly right. God has very strong feelings about widows and children, and especially their protection. I take you back to Exodus chapter 22, and you know, because you're good Bible students, the history involved in the book of Exodus. The people of Israel cried out for a deliverer, a helper, to bring them out of Egyptian slavery. God heard their cry, sent a very reluctant servant in Moses to get the people out of slavery and into the promised land. Well, we see in the book of Exodus, Moses does what God says. They come out of Egyptian slavery. They're now in the wilderness around the region of Mount Sinai. And because, once again, you're good Bible students, you know that in Exodus chapter 20, Moses receives the 10 Commandments, the 2 tablets of stone. But you also know from your studies there are a whole lot more commandments given to the people of Israel than just these 10. And I want to share some of these concerning the most vulnerable of society and what God commands. And we see His nature in this area come alive. In Exodus, the 22nd chapter, beginning in the 22nd verse as well, we see these words that are recorded. And I'm telling you, very, very strong language is used by God in this particular text. It says, "You shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If you afflict them in any way, and they cry out at all to me, I will surely hear their cry, and my wrath will become hot, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless." God meant business. And you know what? The people understood about this crying out because they had just done that previous to God for deliverance from the oppression at the hands of the Egyptians. They knew that God listens to His people and answers their prayers. And He says, if these folks, these widows, these children cry out to me because of an injustice or mistreatment, I will put you in the same place that they are. I will make your wives widows and your children fatherless. Ooh, that's serious language, isn't it? God meant business. He wanted them protected. And we see also in the book of Deuteronomy, 40 years have transpired. Spies have been sent out into the land, 12 of them for 40 days. And God says, I want them to go out and see what I am going to give you. That's Numbers chapter 13, if you would like to read that sometime. And in so doing, the spies went out for 40 days and came back. 10 of them gave a bad report. Oh, the land is great and it's wonderful, but there are too many people. We are like grasshoppers in their sight. There is no way we can conquer the promised land. Joshua and Caleb says, what are you talking about? God says He's giving it to us. Let's by faith go in there. Let's take the land. Unfortunately, the multitude listened to the 10 rather than the 2. And God punished them. He says, for every day the spies were in the land, I'm going to make you wander in this wilderness for a year. 40 years they wandered. The older generation was not permitted to go in because of their lack of faith. But when the time came for them to go into the promised land, when that older generation had died out, we see that God gives the law again. That is thus the book of Deuteronomy. And in Deuteronomy, He reminds them of the earlier command about protecting the most vulnerable. In Deuteronomy 10 verse 17, For the Lord your God is the God of gods and the Lord of lords, the great God, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality nor takes a bribe. He administers justice. That's a key phrase. That's talking about protection from injustice. He administers justice for the fatherless and the widow, and he loves the stranger, giving him food and clothing. And so we see our God is a God of protection for the most vulnerable. But even beyond that, in the law, commandments were given not only for protection, but also for provision. I want them to be provided for. Widows and children during this time did not have the ability to take care of themselves fully. They needed assistance. In Deuteronomy 14, verse 28, we see some of these provisions. He says, at the end of every third year, you shall bring out the tithe of your produce of that year and store it up within your gates. And the Levite, because he has no portion nor inheritance with you, and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow who are within your gates may come and eat and be satisfied, that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands, which you do. Oh, God made a wonderful promise. He said, you take care of the most vulnerable, and I will be sure to bless you and the work of your hands of what you do. Look, if you would, at Deuteronomy chapter 24 now. More provision is made beginning in verse number 19. He says, when you reap your harvest in your field and forget a sheaf in the field, you shall not go back to get it. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. And here's that promise again. That the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. When you beat your olive trees, you shall not go over the boughs again. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. And when you gather the grapes of your vineyard, you shall not glean it afterward. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. And you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt. Therefore I command you to do this thing. This is not just a good suggestion. This is not just a wonderful idea. This is a commandment from God. I want you to provide for the most vulnerable of society, and I want you to protect them. And you're saying to yourself, well, Dave, this is all wonderful, but everything you read is from the law of Moses. It's the old law. We're not bound by that law, and you would be exactly right. We are, however, bound by the new law, the new covenant, the New Testament, the law of Christ. Remember when I said in the beginning that our God is the same yesterday, today, and forever? Well, his nature doesn't change. So we turn to the New Testament and we see that God states in a little different language the same principles that we have already been talking about. In James, the first chapter, beginning in verse number 1, verse number 27, he says, do you want to know what pure religion in its finest form is? He says there's two elements to it. He says in verse 27, pure and undefiled religion before God and the Father is this: to visit, to look after, provide for, protect, to visit orphans and widows in their trouble, and to keep oneself unspotted from the world. That's the purest expression of the religion we can have. To take care of those in greatest need and to make sure we keep ourselves pure spiritually. Our God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And you're saying, Dave, that's a wonderful thought. Why did you mention this? Because woven into what I have said to you is the very idea of the mission statement of Potter Children's Home. We want to be biblical. We think it's very important. Listen to our mission statement and see if it doesn't reflect what we've already talked about this evening. The mission of Potter Children's Home and Family Ministries is to be a tool in the hands of supporting churches of Christ, you all, and individual Christians, you all, to deliver God's justice, that's protection, and mercy, provision, to children and families in need. We want to fill a biblical command given to us by God. We want to visit, to take care of, protect, and provide for children and families in need. That work began at Potter way back in 1914. Clinton and Mary Potter, as a tribute to their son Eldon, who had passed due to the complications of typhoid fever, wanted his name, the Potter name, to last and be a memory to him. And so they established the children's home. So for 107 consecutive years, Potter has ministered to many, many children. As a matter of fact, Potter has had over 7,000 children on our campus during that period of time. Many of those children have gone on to do great things, not only in the communities where they live, but in the congregations in which they serve. They've become preachers and deacons and elders, preachers' wives, deacons' wives, elders' wives, teachers as well. They have been an asset to the Lord's church in a lot of communities. I travel 12 states, and wherever I go, I hear stories of folks that had relatives who were at Potter, who were blessed by their time there, and who are doing great things. We serve, about 60 to 75 children each year. Sometimes the children are with us a short time. Sometimes they're with us throughout their entire childhood as they enter into adulthood. And I'll explain the reason why that takes place in just a moment. One of the great things that we do, and the monies that you give, not only provide for the food for the children, but also counseling and other help that the children need. Imagine being a child, 7, 8, 9 years old, coming to a place that you do not know, and never met a person on that campus, and you have experienced every form of abuse and or neglect that a child can endure. It'd be pretty tough, wouldn't it? And that's the way sometimes our children come to us, and I've seen it firsthand. They have the walls up. They don't want to talk to anybody, and they don't want anybody talking to them, and I can't blame them because they're just trying to protect themselves from further harm. And so we see here, little by little, our counselors talk with the kids. And after a while, the children begin to realize, hey, wait a minute. Maybe this person isn't out to hurt me like everyone else in my life. Maybe there is somebody who loves me. Maybe there is somebody who cares about my future and my well-being. And when they get that perception and that understanding, the walls begin to drop. And they begin to share their stories of things that they've had to endure that no child or adult should have to endure. And they are given tools by our counselors to deal with, to process the painful activities that have taken place in their life. And pretty soon, those walls are completely dropped. And they're open, and they're able to deal with life, and they're able to be a child again. And they run around our campus as if they've never had a bad day. I have seen those transformations. It's beautiful. The monies that you give help support and pay for our counselors, professionally trained counselors, to help out these children, and we'll see a little later on the young mothers as well. It is a beautiful thing that takes place in the lives of our children. And we're going to see all of the different forms of counseling that takes place. And it has to do with the well-being of the child and the family from which they came. We tried to provide a Christian home-like environment. A lot of people, when they think about a children's home, think about children being warehoused. They all sleep in this one open area bedroom, and they're all taken to a cafeteria to eat, so on and so forth. That's not Potter at all. On our 40-acre campus, we have a house for the boys and a house for the girls. And we have house parents in that home, Christian couples, members of the church that are modeling for these kids what a Christian home is supposed to be, what a husband and father is supposed to be, and what a wife and mother is supposed to be. Why do we do that? We do that because we know someday these children are going to leave Potter, and they're going to establish some kind of home Well, what better home to establish than a Christian home? And if they've had it modeled for them, and they have seen how beautifully it works, they may want that for themselves. And then they are strengthened as a family. There are 3 pictures up there. There's one of a bedroom. All of our children have their own private space, their own bedroom within the house in which they live. There's also the family room there. And it's like any other family room. They watch TV there. They do their homework at the computer that they have access to. They play board games. They have devotionals just like you would in your own home. But I think the most important picture there is the kitchen table. Our children aren't taken to the cafeteria to eat. They sit there as a family. And they discuss their day. What happens, good and bad and indifferent. And they learn how to deal with life and deal with one another and how to be a family. It's a great environment for these kids to grow up in. We try to provide a safe environment. Some of these kids have never known a day of safety in their life. Some of the kids, when they come to us, are looking over their shoulder, what's going to happen next. After a while, they quit doing that because they realize at Potter, they're protected. They're safe. And they're secure. Now, I might need to change one of those pictures there. A child buried up to his neck in sand may not exude safety, but he was a willing participant. He wanted to do it. He was happy. He got out. He's safe. I just want you to know that. All right, just so you know that. We try to provide a safe environment for the kids. Now, our children refer to us in different ways. We have private referrals. We have individual families call us. Sometimes we have congregations that call us. And a family just may fall into crisis for whatever reason, and they say, can you step in and help these children? And we do just that. We even have social workers in Bowling Green who will say, listen, the way things are going, you'll probably lose your children to state custody. Why don't you take them to Potter first? Before that happens, to see if they can be of help to you all. So we get public referrals as well. Now let me state something. Even though there may be a state worker involved or whatever, we take no state funds. $0. We don't want a nickel from the state. And the reason why is when you take state funds, there are always strings attached. Always. They can start dictating, if they want to, how we minister to these children. And we don't want them to do that. We want to be able to teach our children about the one body, the one church, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one hope, so on and so forth, of Ephesians 4:4. We don't want that interrupted. And so we don't take any state funds. So it is your generosity that helps us to maintain every ministry that we're involved in. We thank you for that. We need your generosity because without it, we couldn't do the work that we do. As a matter of fact, we were a little concerned about COVID when it first came out. We didn't know how much interruption there would be in congregations, and if you are like any other congregation, the brotherhood that I've been to, there was a big interruption in services and attendance and other things. So we didn't know how that individual congregation might be able to continue their support for Potter. We thought they may had to cut back or whatever. But I want to let you know, in the last 2 years, we have made budget both years at Potter. And that's because the Lord's church has stepped up and continued that generosity. We have not interrupted one ministry that we're involved in at Potter. We thank you for that and allowing us to minister to these children and these families as well. Now, our goal is to reunify a family. I talked to you about counseling earlier for the children. But we also provide counseling for the family in crisis that cause the children to come to us. Why? Because we want to help them rebuild their family to be a safe and secure environment that the child may go back to its natural home. Do you remember I also said that sometimes the children are with us a short while and sometimes for all their childhood? Well, here's the reason why. Sometimes we reach out to a family and they say, oh yes, we don't know what happened. We were overwhelmed, overcome. We're in chaos. We need counseling, and they work through their problems and they are able to reestablish a solid and safe and secure environment for that child. And so the child, through several steps, is able to go back into their original home. Therefore, the child's with us a shorter period of time. But there are some families that get offered the same help and they say, no, thank you. We don't need your help. We don't want your help. We're not changing. Well, there's no way that we could place a child back into an environment. And so that's why some children stay with us through their entire childhood. And so we have them. We want to reunify a family. That's our goal, but it doesn't always happen. And so, but we do provide counseling for not only the children, but for the families involved. I like these pictures, these old black and white pictures, and the other ones as well, where we see children that we've ministered to through the years. I know those kids right there. Also, I want to let you know we don't discriminate in any form or fashion. It doesn't matter the social background of the child. It doesn't matter its ethnic background, the race of the child, community status. It doesn't matter. If that child is in need, we want to try to help out. We take in children from a number of different states, not just Tennessee or Kentucky, but states all around, including Ohio and West Virginia and Indiana and Illinois and other states. We get calls from lots of places, and we've taken children from several different states, and we don't discriminate in any way at all. We have 3 ministries at Potter that we focus on. The core, the central thing of all we do is foster care. And we've done that for many, many, many years. We have 2 homes, as I mentioned, on campus. We have house parents, members of the Lord's Church, in each of those homes. 1 for the boys, 1 for the girls. We are limited right now to having 6 children in each home. But that problem can be solved, and I'll explain that in just a moment. Most of our children range from age 6 to 18. We're just best equipped to take care of school-age children. And having those kids in the home allows us to support them and help them work through life issues. That house right there is the Toddy house. It's the house for the girls. It has just been completely renovated. It was an old, 75 years old. It needed updating and electrical work and all sorts of things. We are currently looking for house parents for the girls' house. And we've gotten calls to take care of some girls in need, but we can't do that until that leadership is fulfilled. So if you know the members of the Lord's Church, a Christian couple, who is willing to relocate and come to Potter to help out with these girls, that would be great. We would love to have that help. I want to mention to you that as I said, the kids are not taken to a cafeteria. They are in the home, and they are taught and trained with chores and other things like that. They all have responsibilities. That's part of being a family. And we see that as the children are taught how to cook. They're taught how to do their own laundry. They're taught how to clean. Well, why do you do that? We do that because we know that someday they're going to leave Potter. And we want them to be self-sufficient. We don't want somebody to stand in front of a washer and say, well, I never did any wash. What do you do? All right? And so we teach and we train them how to do all of those things. And they'll stand there in front of the stove and say, how do you turn this on? Well, we don't want that. We want them to know how to cook and to take care of themselves. And so we try to provide that great environment. Each house has access to a 15-passenger van. You can see where that's necessary. They're taken to school in the vans. They're taken to all their extracurricular activities. They're taken to doctor's appointments and other appointments that they may have. They're also taken every Sunday morning, every every Sunday night and every Wednesday to church, the Lord's church. And we are trying to instill in them spiritual values, not only for the children, but also for all the staff on campus. If you work at Potter, Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday. And that's important, because if the children go to church, but they see the staff not going, what kind of example is that for the children? And so we are all making sure we're at services as well. Our children attend mostly public schools. They're encouraged to participate in whatever activity they want. If they want to be in the marching band, if they want to be in the orchestra, if they want to be in ROTC, if they want to be in a social club, if they want to play on a sports team, we make sure they have everything they need to participate. We want them to have a full and happy childhood as long as they are with us. As I mentioned, sometimes we have more children than we can serve on campus. We have members of the Lord's church that take care of children off campus. They are trained by Potter in foster care, and they take care of the children off campus and then bring them on campus when there are special activities, including the all-important counseling that these children need. So that too is a possibility. The second ministry that we have is the Single Parent Family Ministry. Single Parent Alliance for Raising Kids. That's the official designation. It's called SPARK. And we have single moms who come to us, and some of them in very desperate situations. Some moms have literally been living out of their cars with their children when they come to us for help. We have 20 apartments on campus for the single moms and their children. It's an extensive process. It's a very demanding program, but it needs to be for the well-being of the moms. They come to us and they fill out an application. If the application is satisfactory, they're immediately drug screened. We don't want them to bring anything on campus that would be harmful to themselves, their children, or anybody else on campus. If they pass the drug screen, they go through the interview process to explain all of the responsibilities, and there are many. They have to promise to better themselves educationally and vocationally for the sake of themselves and for their children. They have to agree to take parenting classes. They have to attend services Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday at the Lord's church. They're not allowed to date as long as they're a part of this program. It's very structured. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you 100% of the moms who come on campus stay with the program. For some, it's too structured and they don't want to stay. But for the moms who do stay, and it's the vast majority, they always do well. It's marvelous to see the transformation, the confidence of these moms. We have one of the single moms that attends where I preach right now, who was baptized a couple of months ago, and now she's a Christian. She brings her daughter to services, and she's now working a full-time job. She's saving funds, and she's talking about vocational training. It's beautiful to see the transformation. And we provide in return for them an apartment to live in, utilities paid, and food as well, so that we can relieve at least part of that financial burden that they are carrying, and so they can focus on the future of their children. Our moms have gone on to get IT degrees, nursing degrees, and other training. It's beautiful to see how well that they do. And these are some of the moms that we've worked with. I know all of these moms in these pictures. They're doing great things for themselves and for their children. As you know, about 25% of the children being raised today in our society are raised by single moms. Half of those, nearly half of those, are living under the line of poverty. It's a challenge to be a single mom. My mom was a single mom with 6 kids. And I know from a child's perspective how challenging it was for my mom and what she went through and the hardship and the difficulties. So I feel for these moms who are going through this, because I've lived it as a child, and I want them to do well. Here are a picture of some of the apartments on campus. This is the triplex. There are 3 apartments under this one roof. We have living in these buildings mentor couples, Christian couples who are retired. They've already raised their kids. Some have their own grandkids. And they serve as a help, a counselor, a giver of wisdom, a provider of transportation for all the single moms. We've got some great mentor couples on campus. This is the quadplex. There are 4 apartments under this one roof. We built another quadplex most recently. What we do is we receive special donations sometimes from individuals, estates, and other things. We put that money in an interest-bearing account. And when we receive enough funds to build a home, we do it. We don't take out any mortgages. We are debt-free and want to stay that way. We want to be good stewards of the money we've received. This is a picture of the campus involved. The yellow buildings have to, up front, have to do with the foster care. The purple buildings in the back, and that one yellow building in the back, have to do with the apartments on campus. That one long building on this side, where are we? Yeah, this side has apartments on top of the counseling center beneath. And so we are well equipped, and we want to build more homes and reach out for more children and more moms and so on and so forth. The last ministry, foster care, single parent family, is transitional living ministry. I don't know if you know a lot about the foster care system, but when a child turns 18, they age out of foster care. In other words, they are expected to take care of all of life matters on their own. I don't know how you feel about that, but I don't know many 18-year-old children who are ready to take on the world by themselves. I remember when both of my children turned 18, they weren't even a second cousin close to ready to living on their own. They needed more time and more of Dad's money. That's a joke. All right, not really. And they needed more time and training and so on and so forth. And eventually they transitioned from dependence to independence. But it took time. And it takes time for these children as well. And so we have a traditional transitional living ministry by which we have Christian couples, members of the church in Bowling Green, who have opened up their home to these children who have aged out of foster care and said, let them stay with us. Let them go to college and live with us. Let them get their vocational training. Let them get a full-time job and save money before they try to get their own place for themselves. We've got some wonderful couples doing a great job with that. It is a very important ministry. Why? Because 50% of the children in foster care, when they turn age 18, if they receive no help afterwards, 50% end up either on the street or in prison. Now, that's just not good odds. We want our children to succeed because we have invested a world of love and care and nurture. We want them to succeed in life, and that's why we have the traditional transitional living ministry. They can go from dependence to independence. They can receive additional counseling, because when you first get out into the world, it's a daunting task. It's overwhelming sometimes, but we provide that counseling to help them through that. It is a great ministry. You have supported all 3 of these by the monies that you give, and we thank you for that. Foster care, single parent family ministry, and transitional living ministry. We have a load of success stories because the people that have done this work do it well. They're very experienced. Most of the people that I've worked with have worked at Potter or in child care for many, many years. My supervisor, Byron Henbest, Will, you know Byron. He's been doing child care, he and his wife Barb, for 40 years. They know what works. works. And it's an honor to work with them in the same office because we care about and we love children and we want them to succeed. And we thank you for your love for children to help them to succeed as well. If you have any questions afterwards, you can ask me. Be glad to try to answer any question that you might have. But for right now, I'm going to extend the Lord's invitation. In a moment, we're going to stand up and sing 143, Jesus is tenderly calling. Behold, today is the day of salvation. 2 Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 2, it is. If you need to take a step in making sure that your life is right with the Lord, I pray that you'll do that tonight. It may be that you believe in Christ, but you've never been baptized to have your sins washed away. If that's the case, I pray that you'll make that step. If you already have become a Christian, but you've wandered from the truth, or you're struggling in your walk with God, and you need prayers of encouragement or restoration, take that step if you need to. I can tell by just being here a short while, this is a family of believers who loves one another. And I've listened to your conversations. I've seen you interact. And I know that you want what's best for everyone else. So if you come forward, it's going to be judgment-free. And it's going to be filled with love and encouragement for you. Whatever your need is, please come as we stand and as we sing.